Okay, and as promised, we're gonna take a look at the actual original patch for that. So let me see. So that was the liquid bass.
That was the liquid bass, and it was a kick that was labelled D sharp or G sharp. So
Yeah.
Actually, you were on point with that, and and it's what is it? It was a fourth up from D sharp.
Perfect fourth. I found a lot of the time through analyzing tons of tunes that often the kick was a perfect fourth up from the bass or on the same note. So for instance, we're in G sharp. G sharp is a perfect fourth up from D sharp. There's a fifth, there's a fourth.
Yeah.
I can't say any more than that as to why that works, but I've just looked at that lot and it just seems to sort of sound right.
Well, I think naturally I would just say probably that if that sometimes that happens because you can have a kick and bass that is melodically, harmonically, it might be part of the same scale. So your kick, if your bass is a third up, imagine that it's going dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
And fits and playing its own melody that works together. So
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah. So let's take a look into the patch. So I'll get rid of that for now. And let's open up a Sylenth. So we will. Let me just draw in the pattern first. Cool. So. Okay, I'm just going to put an LFO tool on this as well because it's just a really quick way of getting that kind of pumping side chain. It's just drag and drop so easy.
I would if I was going to do LFO tool, I don't know what anyone else does, but I would
drag it to the top.
I would want that. I want these two notes to be equal.
Yeah.
Velocity.
If anything, the offbeat may be a little bit more prominent as opposed to less prominent.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's see. I mean, also I would probably do something like that.
Okay.
Because I would use it in the same way that I would use
audio.
Just bringing the first note down. I wouldn't want that first note to be curving in particularly. I'm not sure if that's a thing or not, but I would. That's how I would do it.
Cool. So I'll have a play and then I'll restart back to its settings. So basically, like I start by bringing the cutoff right down to the bottom, and that's kind of like the baseline low frequency. And then what I'm doing with the envelope is I'm telling the filter to start at a certain height and fall down to this frequency at a given rate. So the speed at which that happens is the decay. So the amount that the filter starts at is I've set that with my envelope amount. Just set that there. So it's starting very high. So the cutoff is starting very high and it's coming down to very low. And that high start off point is what gives it that clicky sound. And the decay that's just the speed at which that's happening. So if I open up the decay, you can hear it'll loosen up a bit. If I bring it down, it'll happen much quicker. It'll be a sort of tighter sound. And really, the whole sound, in my opinion, the entire sound of the side trance bass rests in between on any synth. It doesn't matter what synth you're using. It's if you're going for this sort of standard trance bass sound. The entire sound is being created by fine tuning that decay, this cutoff and decay knob. So you, for instance, you might want to start a little bit darker, but by bringing this up, it's increasing where the filter starts. There comes a click, and it's just sounding a bit muffled. And so it's kind of balancing it between body and click. I could have it really clicky, but we lose the body. I could have it really rich and open, but we lose the click and the attack. So, and you know, a few milliseconds either direction can make or break a bass. You know, so fine tuning it was the sound of the bass.
What have you got? Just mention the oscillators a little bit.
Yeah, so just one oscillator, saw wave. That's pretty much standard. You know, we're talking about the sort of conventional trance bass sound here. It's one saw, 8 voices. The voices just brings in a little bit of richness. Retrig, so it's always triggering it from the same phase cycle. That's pretty much it. There's no effects, no distortion. Sometimes I put distortion.
No pass filter.
EQ, low pass filter, 12 dB. Having it on 24 would give it a sharper filter resonance. But yeah, it's really simple. So if you're struggling with getting the trance bass, I'd say this would be a good starting point, and it really is this balance. So I bring hear how much that changes the whole sound. So let's take it back to the preset, because that was the liquid bass that we've already chosen. And I just give you an idea of how I would actually process that. So first thing I like to do in Cubase, sorry if you're not Cubase or if you're not a Cubase user, I know Quadrifies is a tricky plugin to get. It can be achieved in live, I've seen it, but you have to have like a VST wrapper, etc. But it's kind of an old classic for trance bass, and for many other purposes. But so what I like to do, I like to roll the gain off, roll a bit of gain off. Just first of all, just by putting this on, it's adding some distortion without even touching a thing. So it's giving it air, it's kind of boosting it, and it's kind of putting it through its multi-band EQ as well. So it's essentially equalizing it.
Yeah, and you can change it with these shapes as well. You know.
Yeah.
The different curves.
That adds more and more distortion.
The most subtle one, that great.
Yeah.
You know, just brings it together, gives it a bit more punch. Kind of puts it into its box a bit in some ways. Yeah,
I'm kind of inspiring what I'm doing here based on the way I originally created the finished liquid bass, which you would get in the Sonic Formation sample pack. So honestly, I don't move these bands. It kind of sounds cool when you do, but it always sounds better when I just go back to default.
Okay, well let's leave it then.
Yeah, let's leave it. So I like to roll off the gain a little bit, like that, and to make up for that, I'm just gonna bring a bit of gain there, just to kind of weaken the distortion a little bit. And that's giving it like that kind of punchy low mid sound. And sometimes I like to add a little bit of click. You can bring out the click a a little bit. It's nice. I'm not going to touch the lows, any of that. Because honestly, you know, as the order dodge goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think it's sounding really good already. Let's do a little bit of EQing. I do all my EQing in the Pro Q.
Yeah.
Pretty much the standard go-to Reverb EQ for most people these days, actually.
Yeah, I love the Pro Q.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes if I'm going to do a linear phase cut, you know, if you want to cut like 30 or 20 or whatever off the kick or the bass or something like that, then maybe I'll go to the Waves linear low band cuts.
The linear EQ.
The linear EQ. But for most stuff, you know, I think FabFilter's nice.
Yeah. And it has linear phase options as well.
It has linear phase options as well.
I've got a default setting actually, which is the analyzer straight on, and 6 dB. It stops me from doing really big cuts having it at 6 dB. So I'm probably just gonna hit a few of the resonances here. Okay, so I usually start looking around here. I mean, there's no. It's a little bit boomy in that 80 territory. Not a science, just kind of hearing a. See a little bit less of that. Okay. I love that you can move it. Anything you can move with the mouse, I'm just a big fan of. Before, after. It's just kind of streamlining it a little bit.
You know, for a lot of people, you know, myself included, sometimes the FabFilter's automatically on 12 dB.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember that when you're watching this, because it looks like a big cut to do on a bass.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you see people doing any kind of surgical bass EQ work, it's on 12 or it's on 30. You know, certainly when I see my mates doing it. So this is on 6, and that's why it does look like a big cut. Should just flick it onto 12 and 30 so they can see actually it's not a big.
It's not a big cut.
It's not a big cut. It's just he's zoomed in more.
Yeah.
And you can even go to 3, and you can get a bit more precision if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just find I make less big cuts, and if I need to go into that 12 dB view, I'm thinking, bloody hell, I'm doing some big cuts on the sound. Why? You know, maybe you need to be fixing that a little bit. So that just got some of that. Like, I think you can, that quadrifuzz can bring in almost a little bit too much richness, which can dominate a little bit. I'm gonna leave that there for the moment. Let's have a little bit less of that. Let's see what else we can pull out of this. I always heads for the octave of these low cuts, just to see if I've detected something there that may well by doubling that frequency, I may well hear the next octave up harmonic from there. So yeah, it's that note I was hearing a lot. It's just a little bit hummy there. Just a little hummy.
Let's try it on. Let's try flicking it on and off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost sounds too full right now. Or should give this a save probably.
Yes.
It's almost sounding a little bit too full. which I know might seem it's like there's tons of good frequencies, and I'm trying to leave myself with. I'm trying to leave us with the kind of the most pure of the tones. I'm getting rid of anything which feels like unnecessary.
It's the muddy. It's the
mud.
Sometimes just a little bit. It's just cleaning it up a little bit. Just using your ears to see how you can streamline those frequencies a bit.
Totally using my ears. Yeah.
I mean, there are ways. If you're looking at the spectrum analyzer and you're very big on that, and there's something that I'm starting to do now, but certainly I wasn't before. And I would say to the people watching this, get on using spectrum analyzers. All this the RME, DigiCheck, this stuff. If you've got RME, so that is we use our ears, but I mean that's definitely a tried and tested method.
People are loving that,
and it's something that we're getting onto now. But definitely check that out. Come at it from as many angles as possible. The
RME is a good one. Okay, and I always like to check around this sort of 5, 6, 650 range as well. Let's have a listen here. So I'm kind of sweeping up, listen to what we got here. That. It's hard to explain why, but a little bit of a cut there. Again, hard to kind of explain why, but let's see. I try to keep the bands fairly wide. If you have if they're too sort of narrow, then it can sound a little bit phasey. You're removing almost two specific frequencies. Where I like to kind of do like a wider. And folks at home, I heard that frequency. I didn't like it, and that's why I'm taking it out. And it really is as simple as that,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are rules and harmonics and this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're talking about, Alex is talking specifically about a methodology that works for him. And it's like that, whether you use the DigiCheck or you listen to what you don't like, take that out, it's whatever works for you, and if it produces the result, then then it's good. But it's always good to try different things as well.
I remember these frequencies. These are frequencies I always check in that range just from years of doing it. So I will tend to zoom in there and see if there's anything I don't like, and that kind of hones my ear into that zone, and then I kind of start hearing stuff I'm not too into. You know what I mean? It's kind of just taken. I'm gonna widen this a little bit. It's kind of just taken off. You look at that. It's actually, this is your normal default view, right? It's not a big cut, but it's
a couple of these.
It's making it sounding a bit more pure. It's taking a bit of the sort of chuff off, you know. We could lose a little bit less of that. I mean, 2 dBs is a lot, but. Hum. Yeah, that D sharp. Hearing a bit too much of that. I would move forward with that.
Yeah, last thing I would just, after figuring out what EQ you're going to do on the low end and the low mid and the mid, sometimes I'll just do a little bit of a high shelf just to have a bit of control over the click, pretty much. See, when you play around with that, sometimes you do, and you experiment and bring it down quite a lot. When you bring it back up to 0, you realise actually that was pretty clicky. And sometimes if you can roll off that click just a bit, you know, you can
a little darker.
Yeah, and you put more emphasis on some of the mid and the low frequencies a bit more, you know, and they can become louder because, of course, you've got less high frequencies.
Remember, I did put some back on the Quadrifuzz. So
Yeah.
if you're finding that a bit clicky, you might want to try taking it off there on the Quadrifuzz.
Could take it off. I mean, let's have a look at that.
Sometimes it's nice to add and then take away on the plugin afterwards.
You know,
Bringing a bit too much click for your ears, Joe?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I quite liked it when you did it on the Quadrifuzz. And I don't necessarily even want to take it off of that. I think sometimes you can have that, put that on, create more click, and just bring it a little bit down on here. I mean, I liked it till this point.
Yeah.
This is the last bit of refinement, so why not bring it a little bit down on here? So just taking off a little bit of edge on that click, and I think let's move forward with this, and let's keep an eye on that. And if we want it more clicky, we've got a nice shelf there. We can control it.
Yeah.
A little bit more, and also yes, you could do it on that Quadrifuzz, but to be honest, I just would prefer to have it on a nice big knob like that, and be able to just bring it up and down on a high shelf.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems more straightforward to me.
Okay, so. Last thing I do before, so I'm gonna resample it, which is to me it's crucial. Yes, it's re-triggering in theory, but I just find that if you want to be really sure that every note is not just sounding the same every time, but maybe we could trim the initial attack as well. It's crucial to get it into audio.
Yes.
At which point we'll also look at a bit of compression. So I will do this to a nice long note. So let's get this LFO tool off before I bounce it. Solo that. Okay. All right, and now that we have an audio, I can now take a closer look in. You can see that there's actually like a bit of a slow start on that. I like to see if I can trim ahead. Now, sometimes you see in all kinds of pro tracks this little lag here. With the Sonic Formation sample pack, I actually came in and zoomed right in and got a bit of that click away. You can hear it's just, if I take that off, it's just made it a little tighter. There's a little bit more attack there. And by using just the same note every time, I think you're gonna hear that. So I'm just gonna write this back out again. In fact, one thing I'm gonna do before moving on, it's at this stage I like to add and have continuous control over a bit of compression. So let's bring in. This is my and I think often your.
Yeah. I love this one as well.
The 1980 compressor.
I don't know why I chose 1980, but we're born in the 80s.
I think
and it just looks nice, you know.
Born in the 80s, yeah.
I just thought. Yeah.
It's low on processors, so you're not chucking loads of processor into your mix, even if no matter how many of them you have.
No, that's right.
Yeah, it's just that classic sort of 1176 style. And I'm gonna go for the settings. actually, which I actually picked up from one of our previous master classes. Attack all the way up, release all the way down. It just works a charm.
So you're creating more click with this one, yeah?
Creating more click, just to bring out the transients. If I bring it right down hard, you can hear that pop. Of course, then you're getting all the pop, but not much body, so less bass. So just gonna bounce. Looking at about 2 to 3 decibels there.
So give it an A beat with that.
Yeah. See, even approaching 4 decibels, it sounds like it's less bassy.
Yes, but yeah,
because it's reducing the gain of the bass. After 100 milliseconds, it's starting to reduce the gain, so that's why it sounds that way. So just a little bit, just bring that pop out. Now, I'd love to see how you approach those levels.
Yeah. Okay. So, what I would do in this situation is, and obviously it changes throughout the mix. You know what your levels are going to be, but again, sitting in the right position, also walking around a bit. You know, I'm going to be looking to get these kick and bass levels in the ballpark. You know. Again, I do like to look at the Smexoscope a little bit. Not that I'm going to do it visually too much, but it's just nice to have it there. It's nice to see. So the first thing I would say there is that the bass is too loud in relation to the kick, just a little bit. So I bring that down a touch. See, for me, especially over the last few years, I have been putting my kicks up a little bit more than I used to, and certainly more than we did, you know, on the original Sonic Species album that featured tracks from me and Alex. So the kicks have got a bit louder. When it's, like I said before, when it's the right kick and bass match, I personally feel like it doesn't sound like a loud kick. It just gives some kind of it just gives some power to the mix, and it brings everything together.
Yeah.
So I'm liking that. So I brought the bass down a little bit. Let's look at it on the Smexoscope. I will just have a little look, even though peak volume isn't everything. It's still nice to just check where things are coming in at sometimes on the master. Of course, you can press K to. It's a great little function, pressing K to bring that meter down.
It's a custom.
Is that custom?
Yeah, reset VU meters.
Reset VU meters on K. I mean, Alex always had it like that, so I just thought it was. Okay, so look,
getting pretty high.
Kicks -3. So I would, for ballpark purposes, I'm gonna just dissolve that. For ballpark purposes, I'll put the kick at say -7, -7, -8. So let's do that. No, I do that on the. I keep.
But you're looking at them.
I'm looking at the master.
Right.
I'm pressing K to reset the meters, and I'm keeping the channel volume as close to 0 as possible. It will get tweaked later, but I just like to keep them like that. And getting this down 7 or 8, something like that. So I'm going to say, in this example, I'm going to say 7. So kicks on 7. And again, this isn't RMS, but this is just peak volume, but. It gives us an idea, and for the full picture we've got the Smexoscope, so between the two, I mean, hopefully nothing's going to go wildly out of the ballpark or whatever we're aiming for. Okay. Okay, so look, this is showing me the bass is in fact it's even louder than I thought. It's a couple of decibels louder than the bass as it is. So I am going to bring that down, even though it sounded kind of cool. I know from experience that I don't want my bass to be louder than my kick generally, unless it was some once in a while, whatever. But no, generally I haven't done a track where the bass has been louder than the kick for quite a long time now. So I'm going to bring that down to at least the same volume and then take it from there. Okay, so that's the same volume as the kick. Let's listen to that. You can see that now we've turned the amplitude down a bit. So and that's still and now I'm hearing it like I normally do a little bit more, and that sounds too loud. The kick doesn't sound powerful enough. So rather than bring the kick up, I've got that at a nice level. I'm going to keep bringing the bass down. So let's knock 3 decibels off, see what that does. See, to me that sounds better already. Yeah, 4 decibels was too much. I've taken it down 3, which might seem like a lot to you guys, but like I said, let's see what it's like on the meters. Okay, we're on -10 on the bass, 10.3, and like before was -7, so 2.7. So let's just say for argument's sake, we're about approximately the kick is approximately 3 decibels louder on the master volume on the Cubase mixer.
Sometimes I like rounding off the subs on these kicks as well. I just jump into a little bit of a fade out. Got a bit of a
this is something
little
you can
kick
do,
back. It's a little bit more pure. You're talking about a relationship between 2 bass elements. I mean, the relationship technically occurs here in this area. So if you think about it, this sub roll-off can have a big effect on the sound. So I like... you can really hear, if you're listening on decent speakers, you'll hear that changing quite a bit. I think I prefer it a little bit more like that.
When you're doing this kind of kick and bass work, there is just a few things that you'll check. As Alex said, one of the most obvious ones is this, the roll off. So this is your area that there's going to be, if there's problems, it's going to be here, because this is where the 2 basses cross. This is where it can cancel, and this is where it can affect the flow and the sound of the whole bass line and the whole thing. So anything that happens here is a point of interest. So whatever you're doing, fading this, yes, you can fade it, you might not fade it, you might fade it, but that's always something to try. We've done the phase, we've done the pitch, but the phase, changing the phase of the kick obviously will affect that. And then one thing that you can do also, that's I don't really tend to do this so much anymore, but it's always nice to try a little bit, which is just actually sometimes moving this first note around. Not so much that you'll really hear it, but I mean, it's if you're having problems, we're not really having problems here, but if you really like something but it just needs to be tweaked a little bit, this is something that you can try.
If it's not matching up with the phase of the kick?
Yeah, if it just doesn't, if it's almost there and you've tried everything and you can't think, what else could I tweak? I like it. It seems to be really, really, I'm just going to bring that back, actually. I generally don't let the kicks, let me do that to all of them. I don't know how that happened, actually, because I thought I genuinely keep the kicks to the finishing where the second note of the bass starts. But anyway, like I was saying, if you've tweaked everything and you can't figure out what else to do and it still needs tweaking, let me just get rid of this channel for a sec. This is complicated. Let's give this a another color I was going to say. Oh, we do that in a minute. You can try just moving this a little bit. So zoom in. This is one last thing. You can try to tweak and have a little look. So, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Take the snap off and try moving this. You know, try moving this around, because you can see there's different phasing going on there. There's so moving it around so it starts at different points in the bass waves might make it will make it have a different sound. So you just loop one beat, zoom right in, and just try it out, see what it sounds like. You can hear it's too much, obviously. See, look, it's moved. We've moved it off. It's technically not in time, but it still sounds fine. You know, you can't hear that, and sometimes it can solve issues.
Yeah, I'm hearing different harmonics becoming more and less apparent, actually.
Yeah, and it does change it. I mean, in this case, you know, I like it how it was. But this is,
if you're looking for that extra mile,
you're looking for that,
worth checking.
It's worth checking. It's just, again, it's one of the things you can check.
Yeah.
So we've got the kick is just shy of 3 decibels louder than the bass on the master volume.
Can I just try one last thing, actually? Sure. Which is I also like playing with the envelopes a little bit. Because remember, we did do a longer note and chop that. So we might get more of a natural envelope, a natural fade out, actually, with the audio here. And you can do this in any DAW that I know of. You can just tighten things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Some people even have shorter notes, so neither of us were ever big fans of that.
No, because you know, if you have them too short, then your bass wave's not getting a chance to develop, and we're already at quite a high BPM in psytrance.
Yeah. So just last thing, grouping it. Would you be processing it, trying to get at a certain level on the master?
I mean, it really depends. I wouldn't at this stage in the track. I wouldn't. I would have once upon a time I would have started maybe doing a bit of saturation, or maybe trying to compress them together to bring them together a little bit. But the way I do things now, like I said before, I'll be focusing so much on this selection process that I generally probably won't do anything at this point, because I'm hoping by this point this sounds like, you know, good enough to at least start writing the track.
Yeah.
Now you know, what I do is I'll definitely, in the first group will always be kick bass.
Yeah.
And I will always group them to there, because at the end of the day I'm gonna be putting filters on there. And yes, I might process it, but even if there's no processing on that kick and bass group channel, there'll still be filters being, you know, when you want to get the filter sweeps on the kick and bass, there'll still be stuff happening on that. So I'll need them to be grouped anyway, whatever happens. So that will always be something that I'll do. So they'll be grouped.
Yeah.
And you can control the volume together. It's handy.
Yeah.
And you can play around with stuff. Sure, if you think it needs it, you can play around with compressing them together a little bit.
There's only one thing which I would say, which is,
or sometimes the cutting at 20 hertz or 30 hertz can be an interesting thing to try on the kick and bass group.
I like to add a limiter, not to actually limit, but not audibly, but just to get the out, just to get it at -10 on the master. I find that to be a really good point at which to have the kick and bass in the track. And some people have different rules. I'll get your opinion. I bring the threshold down until it's just tickling the attenuation. Looking at this number, waiting for it to move. No audible attenuation. It's not audibly squashing it at all. But what this does mean is that if we look on the master channel now, it's coming out at -10. I find that if your kick and bass is at -10, and some people say -8, -7, -12, whatever, but in that range, if your kick and bass is around that ballpark on the master, if you have sounds which are actually clipping the master, you know that those sounds are just way too loud. It's a nice way of getting you into the ballpark. I find if a kick and bass is at -10 and the mix is sounding really good, my mix will generally just naturally every time be in this sort of -3, 4, 5 decibel range. That's my personal experience, but not so much.
For the moment, well, like I say, the main thing I'm focusing on now is the kick and bass relationship, and that's almost always now turning out to be at least 2 decibels louder on the kick. And yeah, I guess I probably would put it somewhere around -10, but I wouldn't necessarily just be I would put it there arbitrarily, but I wouldn't necessarily always make the connection that if a sound is pushing it into the red when the kick and bass is at -12, is going to mean that is too loud, because also it depends how you're treating the sounds. Depends how you've compressed the kick and bass, and there's also the whole thing of RMS and peak volume being different. And yeah, I mean, but at -10 it could be a good place to start for sure. And I used to do that definitely, and I still do now. It's just there's just no hard and fast rules to gain structuring, because it depends what kind of track. Sometimes you're making a minimal track, or more minimal, and of course you can have a louder kick and bass. It's one of the reasons some more minimal progressive tracks can sound so much fatter than 150 BPM, for example, because not just because they're slower and the bass has more time to develop, but because they've got less sounds, and there's less sounds fighting to take up that space in the volume. So you can have you've got 5 sounds, including the kick and bass. Of course, you're going to be able to have each sound louder than if you've got 50 sounds all occupying the same decibels. So it's just a logical thing. So yeah, it does depend, but -10 is a fine place to keep it, I reckon, for the beginning. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it for kick and bass. So let's jump onto percussion.
Let's do it.
Cool.